Okay, what year did you move, or were you born in Old Orchard?
I'm not sure if I was born here. I was born in at the Weber Hospital in Biddeford, but we moved around a little. But I don't know if I lived in Scarborough for a year at Tunson Corner, or I don't know when I moved, but I'm gonna try to find out. So I could have lived here all my life, and I could have lived here like 60 years. I'm 71, I could have lived here 70 years, but I don't know when we moved exactly.
Okay.
Do you have any siblings? If so, do they live in town?
Yeah, I have 5 brothers and sisters. 3 of them are living in town. 2 of them are away. One's up in Fort Kent and one's down Middleborough, Mass.
What is your favorite childhood experience in OB?
Well, I would say when we were little, we used to go on the rides a lot. We're the ragamuffin kids around town. Sometimes they put us on the rides just to test them out. We could be on for 2 hours if we wanted to.
Where did you live?
Well, I lived, the first place I remember living is on top of the sandbar. That was on Orchard Street. There was 3 apartments there. Then when I was in the 3rd grade, we moved to Halfway, right where King Real Estate is now. That used to be Hollywood Motor Court. And the guy also sold apples. Everyone called him the Apple Man. That we rented the main house there. Then when I was a junior in high school, my mother bought the house on the corner of Evergreen and 15th Street. It was a Goshen house. It was and we moved down there, and that's been in the family for since 1965. Well, this was actually, it still is, probably the English room I was in. And we went to, when I first started school, I lived on Orchard Street. School Street actually had schools on it. And there was 2 buildings. In fact, one of the first building that you came up when you drove down from Saco Avenue was the wooden building that they built just before Old Orchard. It was a 2-story wooden building. They built that just before Old Orchard got their own town from Saco. We succeeded from Saco. And then after that, they built a bigger building. That was, the wooden building we went to was 2nd grade, and the other one you went to the 1st and 3rd grade in kindergarten in the bigger building, which is now Centennial Place. It's a lot of people live there. It's apartments. Then once you get to the 4th, and 5th, well, they built a Jameson around 54, and we got shipped up there. That's when I had to start taking a bus to school. Then they had a federal building that's in between the Jameson and this building, the Loranja. And that was an old Army barracks. It's a long white building, and there was classes on both sides, and there was a big hallway. And that burned down around, we went to the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade there. That was a junior high, they called it. And that burned down in around 62. And then hence they turned this into a high school and a junior high. Until they, that's how when they start transforming everything over. Then I didn't go to the new high school because our class was the first class to graduate from the gymnasium, John McSweeney Gym. But the year before that, we didn't have a gym. The class of 65, my sister's class, they graduated from the Palace Palladium Ballroom down on Orchard Beach, where they used to have big dances. Like all the big stars came here. Dick Clark and his Caravan of Stars and all those. You could name anyone in the 60s and they played there. Well, that's where they had to graduate. We're the first class to play to graduate from the new gym, but we couldn't play in the gym because it wasn't finished yet. We had to play all our games that year over the Saco Armory. That was our home court.
What year did you graduate from high school?
1966.
OOB?
The first job I had wasn't a real job. I used to help people dig and I packed apples for the apple guy. We get the 25 cents for a bag in a box of 12 apples. But when we were little, me and my brother had a screen, and we'd sift sand, or we'd shine shoes. But the actual job, I would say I worked on the pier fries when I was actually on the pier. And I worked there for 3 years. First year I was a French fry man, and the next 2 years I was the ice cream man. Because the person, Tom Fraser, he just passed away. He owned the Dairy Toro and the pier fries. Now, which is pier fries is down by Bill's Pizza.
Which was your pay when you were working?
Not much. I can't remember exactly, but I got to take back on that question because my first job was caddying when I was 7th and 8th grade. 8th grade, I was a caddy at the Orchard Beach Country Club. Okay, how much did it pay? I don't know, but I made it like $100 a week, maybe 120. But you know, you work long hours. But it was I got the going rate exactly what it was. I don't know. Caddying, I remember you got $1.50 for 9 holes or $2.50 for 18 holes. But the people usually give you a tip besides that.
Are there any stories about the history of Old Orchard Beach that you experienced that you would like to share with us?
Stories about Old Orchard Beach? Well, one that is kind of interesting, I was in photography back then. In '78, when the big storm came and wrecked the pier, well, they had a metal rail until a few years ago in front of the merry-go-round. And I was standing on top of that and taking pictures of the pier and leaning against a telephone pole. And a huge wave came up. And I didn't have time to run. I had to turn around and hug the pole. And I'm standing about this, my feet are this high off the ground to begin with. And it's like on the walkway, so that was 3 or 4 feet higher than, 2 or 3 feet at least higher than the sand. And another 3 or 4 feet where I was standing. I had to turn around and hug the pole. And the waves were hitting the back of my legs. So when the water went, that wave went way over the railroad tracks. So when the water went down, I got the heck out of there. That was just one. There's a million stories. But that's one.
Drastically changed throughout your time living there, and have you been infected in it anyway, and how did it make you feel?
Could you repeat that?
Yes. What are some things in OOB that drastically changed throughout your time living here, and were you affected by it in any way?
Well, one of the things that I remember was that fire that wiped out the Noah's Ark and the White Way. I was up on, we were living in Evergreen. I just got out of the military then. I was drafted and I spent most of my time over in Korea, South Korea. But when we get home, there were a bunch of my friends, we were hanging around, getting ready to go out for the night. I was around 21 or 22. And I went upstairs to go to the bathroom and I saw this huge red glow downstairs. I said, hey, something's happening, let's go. So we all headed down, we ran down Saco Avenue, we got downtown and the pier, part of the pier and the White Way was all engulfed in flames. And we got there, we helped the firemen pull some hoses and stuff. And then after a while, we had to stand back, because it was, let them do that. We just helped out in the beginning. But that really changed the whole atmosphere of the town after that.
Have you been a witness or victim of any catastrophic events in OOB, and has it affected you in any way? How did it make you feel?
I can't think of anything that's really bad. I'm sure there was things, but I kind of block out the bad things and try to think about the good things.
What made you want to stay in OOB as an adult?
Pardon me?
Oh, what made you want to stay in Old Orchard as an adult?
Well, I really like the people here and everything, the beach, and we're like they called us the playground of two nations back then because in the summer, all of Canada and who knows from all over, they came here. So you met a lot of people. You get really diversified and the number of people you could talk to. I just love Old Orchard.
What was one of your favorite things to do in OOB? Do you have a favorite thing to do in OOB now?
Well, I still like to go to the beach a lot. That's probably my favorite, in the background, favorite thing. But I enjoy almost everything in Old Orchard Beach that they do.
What was one of your favorite things? Wait, sorry. Can you start over?
Yeah.
Why, and is it still here?
But when we were like in high school, we used to hang out on the corner where the Victoria Grand Vic is now. Back then we had a pecking order which corner was, and we just, back then it was kind of cool to hang out downtown. And that was it. It was a prime corner.
Big landmarks that people may not know about today that you would like to share?
Landmarks. Well, there's the thing people don't realize is that Old Orchard was we were kind of like first in aviation when they were all trying to make a way to fly to Europe. There was like $25,000 bonus for the first person that flew across the Atlantic, and a lot of aviation was just getting started then, so a lot of people were taking off from Old Orchard Beach. There was a hangar, Jones's hangar, right down where the Friendship is now. And actually, after the war, Charles Lindbergh, he was the first one to fly across the Atlantic. They made a movie, maybe you saw it. And he landed, he was doing a tour, and he landed at Old Orchard Beach, not on choice. He was supposed to land at the Portland Airport, which was actually at that time in Scarborough. And my father-in-law, when his mother, they had a summer cottage in down on Reggio Avenue, and they heard the plane. Well, whenever they heard the plane, they would walk down the George's hangar. It wasn't that frequent. They went down there, and there was like 12 people there, and it was Charles Lindbergh landed because the airport they were supposed to land in was socked in with fog, and he remembered there was one on Old Orchard Beach, so he landed there. And my father-in-law, he was only like 5 there. He went down with his mother, and they saw Lindbergh with some other people. When they heard the plane, they probably did the same thing. And he remembers that Charles Lindbergh had a blue sweater on. Was left over from the steel pier. And if you go right near where the sand is, you see these cement abutments, that hold it up. But if you look inside, there's pieces of steel, and that was the steel pier. And they just poured cement around it when it got older. But they had, not in my time, but my father used to dance. They had ballroom dancing, and they had the movies out on the end. And my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, that's where they met, was on the pier. And they ended up getting married. And if you went early, you could go to the movie. First they had a movie, open-air movie at the end of the pier. But when I worked on the pier, it was a little different. They had a big aquarium and pinball machines and arcade and skee-ball, like the Palaces now. That was out on the end of the pier. And they had an aquarium, which is nice. You can still see the live piranha. It's almost feeding time. The giant sea turtle. They played that record over and over again. So back then we could say it verbatim, like we just was thinking about the pier. But they had nice shops and games, and they even had Omar would read palms. He was pretty old, and they had a guy right at the beginning. Well, I can't forget. There was the huge merry-go-round. It was there was 4. They're made in Germany. It was one of the greatest, probably merry-go-rounds left in the world. It was, and that burned down with that big fire in the Whitehall. the thing was huge. And they played Bury, the old music and the old carved horses. That was a sad day. But right at the beginning, when you walked up the pier, the music would be going from the, you almost got in step with it. And there was a guy there, Joe Schatz, he made donuts. He had this machine, he shot the donuts right in the oil, flip them over with a chopstick, and I remember that. And they had Mrs. Pearlie's People under the pier. It's like an animal farm. She was a very famous woman. She helped develop a lot of strains of mice that we're using today. She knew about the genes and stuff before a lot of people knew about them. That was the first place I gambled. You could roll a nickel down the slot, the little groove. It's a wooden block that was tilted, and there was a big board that would roll around. If it landed on a 5, you get 5 nickels. But if it landed on a line, you'd lose your nickel. Well, you could lose, you get 1 nickel. They had 1 through 5, the numbers.
Did you ever go to any of the concerts at the ballpark or pier?
Oh, yes. Well, the concerts really, when I was growing up, was at the Palace Playland. That's why I was saying, almost everyone that was a star in those days went there. They had a dance on Wednesday and Saturday during the summer. But the concerts at the ballpark, I went to, I'd say, 9/10 of those. That was the last time I saw Roy Orbison. He was leading off, he died about a month later. He was leading off for the Beach Boys. But to me, I liked him a lot better than the Beach Boys. We kept him on stage a little longer than we were supposed to, by ovations, one more song and this and that.
Were you here when the famous bands played? If so, which band was your favorite?
Yeah, they're talking about the older bands, and I was too young to go to those. That's when they started having the people I was talking about at the Palace. Those people mostly played on the pier, so I wasn't involved with that.
Did you ever see any of the horse races at the kite track?
No, I was too young for that, but we used to play demolition derby, they used to call it. They'd get some old junk cars and they'd race them around the track after it was over. I think that closed in the war, and I don't think it ever opened up, World War I. But I never did see a horse race there. Yeah, when I was little, Muskie, I met him in 1952. I was just little, we still lived in Owacha Street then. They had a big rally down the Memorial Park, and they had these big speakers and they're playing. I remember that, but I don't think they were doing a campaign for Eisenhower. And they were all singing, "Whistle while you work, Stevenson's a jerk, Eisenhower's got the power, whistle while you work." But I don't know if I think I met Muskie and Susan Collins and Olympia Snow. But I can't think of any real famous people. I mean, those are famous people, but I didn't meet Charles de Gaulle or anyone like that. I was supposed to meet John Kennedy. I belonged to Columbian Squires in Biddeford, and we saved money to go to Washington D.C. and give him a sword and make him honorary member of the Knights at the Columbian Squires. It's like junior Knights of Columbus, but he got killed about 2 or 3 weeks before that, so we just had to go see the grave.
Have you seen the Dummy Railroad? Did you ever ride on it?
No, that was long gone before I was born. But if you go over the bridge in Ocean Park towards Camp Ellis, and you look to the left and you see some wooden pylons sticking up, those were the pylons for the bridge that went across Goosebea Brook.
The planes had landed?
No, I was there, we had a fly-in in '76. I was working at the Biddeford Airport at the time. So I knew some of the pilots that fly in. They had like 20-something planes that landed at low tide. But they also had the replica of the Spirit of St. Louis, where John Lindbergh landed in Old Orchard Beach earlier. What I was talking about when my father-in-law went down when he was 5. And so there was a big fly-in, and I was down there. I asked my girlfriend at the time if she wanted to take a walk down and see the planes. And now she's my wife. And we went down, and one of the flyers that flew in asked if I wanted to take off from the beach. It was time to go. The tide was coming in. And that was all in front of the Friendship again, because it's real flat down there, and that's where they land. And so we get in the plane, and she waves goodbye to her father and her uncle, and they thought that's the last they're gonna see of her, right? And we zoomed around, and one of my friends was in a sailboat out there, and the guy, the pilot, they call him the mayor, he corkscrewed down on him. He just barely, we're sideways in the plane. And then we flew around. He asked me where I wanted to go, and finally, that was it. We're going back to the Bibb Airport, and we had a hitchhiker ride home. But that was really exciting.
How did you spend your birthdays in OOB?
Oh, my birthdays, even at work they laugh about me because I always took my birthdays off. And what we did, we have, you know, when you're little, you had cake and ice cream. When you got older, you went out drinking with your friends. And that was fun. Now, we just, you know, have family around. We have something good to eat. Call it good.
Did you ever go to any of the dances in the ballroom?
That's the Palace Ballroom, I think you're talking about. Yeah, I went to almost every one there was. They're great. It was very peaceful. We didn't, the people from Old Orchard wouldn't let anyone fight in there. They said, you guys want, we got people from all over. You guys want to fight, go down on the beach and fight. We don't allow anyone to fight.
What were the restaurants like downtown?
Oh, they were kind of nice. My father was actually a cook in most of the a lot of the different restaurants in Old Orchard. And so he was, I was first-hand knowledge of most of the restaurants that were near a lot of them. And they were real nice. The whole thing has changed now from what restaurants used to be and what they are nowadays. Things are more trendy, you know, and then more, everything's got to be hot. It's no good. Spice it up, and if you get something good, you don't want to. Well, I'm not getting into that. It's all different.
Your childhood, anything about Old Orchard?
Well, at one time, this is stuff I get from Dan Blaney, because they had a course, a history of Old Orchard. And the one thing I remember is one time we had 5 different railroad companies right in Old Orchard. But that was only, it happened for a few months. We had the Eastern Railroad, now it's the Eastern Trail. That was the original railroad. Then when they started building all the hotels, they wanted the trains to stop downtown. So they built the Western Railroad. But they're in opposite places. The Eastern Railroad should be near the beach, and you know, so the names are kind of in different places. And they had a railroad that connected them before, before they disbanded one or the other. They were still both operating. And they had a railroad that went right down School Street from up by the Ross Road. That's where it connected. And they had the dummy line. That's 4. But when they first built the steel pier, it only lasted like 7 months because a storm came up. Well, anyways, when it was open, when the steel pier was open, it was about a mile long, quite a ways. I don't know if it was a mile long, but it was a ways out, and they had a miniature railroad. It was actually a full-fledged steam engine with a bunch of cars that haul people out to the big dance hall that's out there now. That was way at the end. So that was the 5th Railroad.